I'm
Yeah.
really happy to talk to you and to share whatever that I'm doing here in beautiful Sonoma County. There was a Linux conference going on, open source, so they invited me. Angela Brown is a wonderful woman. She's VP Communications, and I've known her for a number of years. And she said, "Hey, we have something about AI leadership. Would you be willing to do a keynote?" So, well, I was super excited about it. I prepared, there were like interesting and important questions we tend
Mhm.
to answer as well in data science office hours, like jobs or the viability of, kind of doing artificial intelligence. But what is it? I mean, it's a buzzword. It's more like a business imperative. And it's exactly what machine learning and deep learning tend to start. They tend to shine, and you need to maximize value for your company. You need to be able to have projects or find and fund projects that are that kind of help you move forward. So really interesting discussion. There were like hundreds of people are here, and obviously, we had agreed, you and I, that we would be having this conversation. I know you have this amazing series, so finally we kind of combine all these things together. What better way than in this beautiful Sonoma County. I'm here close by. You guys are here as well. I don't know. You live close by, or?
I'm in New York.
Oh, New York. Oh,
On
that's
the other
far.
side, it's
Well,
it's
I'm gonna be.
winter
Yeah.
storm. It's completely the opposite
Oh
here.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
not
that's
beautiful.
bad.
School is closed. Yeah, people are working from home. So
Yeah, and so a lot of people here as well. Bo is like in Sunnyvale, I think, or some no more in Orange County. So he's a little bit. Yeah. So very happy to talk to you. So what do you want to talk about?
well, so you posted yesterday on LinkedIn, I think 3 or 4 questions that people have been asking. So I did want to start with the first question of, can we expect AI to write its own code, and kind of get your thoughts on what do you think the impact is on, aspiring data scientists who are learning to code? Should they be worried?
So it's if they solve the problem of, for instance, data pre-processing, etc., where we spend like hundreds of hours to do, it's a whole lot of perspiration and sweating it out.
Right.
I would say, yeah, great. If there are scripts, for example, and I know there are scripts out there on GitHub. So the question was, well, so Jim's question. Jim is executive director at Linux Foundation. So his question was, hey, listen, there are like, GitHub has, I don't know how many millions and millions of lines of code. So can we get and kind of organize the code in a way, and I'm sure some companies are working on stealth already to do that. So we can kind of start breaking it down and start letting AI or some kind of a conversational programmer interface program and just say, okay, bum, 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 it's doing everything for you. So it's going to make us initially feel a little bit powerless, because I think personally, as a developer or someone who's just interested in trying to organize data before you can start doing data crunching, is I would say my intuitions just go away, because there's some machine doing some collection work for me. So yeah, so the intuitions is something which I would struggle with, because then it's not my mind that is thinking about searching for data. It is a machine that's doing that. Is it a bad thing? I don't think so. It's just me, how I feel about what is being taken away from me. So I welcome it in a way that, from that perspective, that it reduces my workload. So for instance, if you ask me, I would love to I have like 20 plus projects on healthcare, bioinformatics on GitHub. Now, I want to get all of them started properly. So I would love to fire up, let's say we call this conversational programmer interface, or some kind of a robot. It says, hey, go after and do task A, B, C for me, the first initial task on all these 20 projects, or what have you, 2,000 projects.
Right.
I would welcome that. So, but it is definitely going to affect also many programmers around the world, or at least people with data science capabilities, that if that is it's only their job, they would be out of work. Yes. So that probably may happen as well. So we need to be watchful for that.
So
it's not a bad thing in the long term, but in the short term, there's a lot of pain.
Right. So what do you think people can do in anticipation of this change? What other skills should they focus on building outside of maybe just coding, programming?
Yeah. So interestingly, there was a young lady I was talking to, KC. So hey, KC, she's here from California. So I'm sure she's gonna probably also watch the video. So we were sitting and having lunch together. She says the only thing that I learned from my mentor and her boss is diversify as much as you can,
Mhm.
in order to be able to, be a more sort of, let's say, a more of a human kind of data scientist, and not the robotic kind of way. See, the problem is this: Silicon Valley brought this onto itself. I say that with all due respect. So when you have all these robotic Google and robotic Facebook and robotic kind of Amazon engineers, and I
Yeah.
know because that's the way they behave. They're like, hey, how are you, man? And they're just
Mhm.
programming. Then those guys, that's how the code is. The code has no sort of sense and feeling. The code does
Mhm.
what it executes.
Right.
We have trained people, at least in advanced countries, to program, because programmers were kings. Now, this whole big axe we call AI is falling, and these same mechanized, clever but mechanized robotic PhD Stanford graduates are
Right.
going to be feeling the burn as well. So I think diversifying and creating and knowing and doing different things is definitely. And what are those things? I guess.
That was my next question. What do you mean by
Yeah,
like is it different tools? Is it different language
yeah.
or
So
communication skills?
yeah. So what I do, for example, I can give my example. My life's example is uh, I used to uh, I used to be in a profession in the 90s where so it was a so I studied astronomy, so nautical astronomy, and before that I studied physics.
Okay.
And so it was, I saw the transition, how jobs were moving was in the 90s, where there was some kind of an economic kind of disruption going on. And I used to work in the oil and gas sector, and there were people bigger salaries were being replaced by people who, for instance, I was young, and for a couple $1,000s a month, I was happy. And then they were able to replace those people because a lot of processes in the maritime industry, as in, for example, operating cranes, moving cargo from A to B, using mechanized kind of cranes on the harbor, and taking, and even sort of operating not just cargo that you lift and ship, but also, for example, gas and or oil you could transport without just with a handful of people, or probably even no people. So then they just needed people to reduce the cost, and the cost reduction led to me, kind of getting that job. So I said, hey, great. So I am the person that the company needs. But within 3 to 4 years, I was obsolete. And so what did I do to survive? I kept kind of diversifying. I sort of learning new skills. For example, if you stick to Python, I don't know, there are some beautiful things happening in a different language. I would say try to learn Julia, understand other things. Diversify as much as you can, because the more you diversify, the more depths you will explore, which
Mhm.
you ideally would not see if you're just operating. Let's say you're just doing TensorFlow. You'll be stuck there. Probably there are beautiful things to explore. TensorFlow is growing dramatically, but maybe understand PyTorch a little bit. So it's a bit of a stretch for your brain. It is, because
Yeah.
you have to be super hyper flexible, and at the same time be willing to absorb whatever that is coming into your, I mean, your really the neurons that are there in this brain. Um, but if you have this mission that, wow, in 5 years probably my job is going to be pretty much at risk, you're in trouble.
That's a
Just
scary
sitting
thought.
about. Yeah. So stretching, I guess writing skills are great. So for example, note taking, writing, and business skills are very important. For example, presenting your complex theories to business managers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to learn that, how I do it is, when I talk to business people, so I've been on the business side, I've been a management consultant, and you only have businessy conversations where people are saying, well, the cost and capital and capex and opex and all that stuff, and people think that, well, when can I start quoting? And so having that conversation is very important, and understanding what the business operating climate is, what are the risks, what are the compliance issues. Talking in various business functions is equally good. Although you may find business marketing people to kind of extremely frothing with every new marketing tool, and they are super. They seem frustrating, but they seem to have insights. You should talk to them. You have salespeople, so talk to sales, marketing, procurement, and so walk around, and make that kind of a journey. Just kind of explore.
Right.
I did that. So this is what I did. This is not some advice I'm giving. I did that. And people who have worked with me in the last like 10, 20 years, they know this.
Mm-hmm.
And that has somehow sort of helped me learn a lot. So the revelation was, one, yeah, whatever I thought was going to happen was happening. Yes, jobs were coming to risk. Even I thought, you have a great job. Well, it's like kind of a whirlwind. It comes around, this whole thing, and this time it's technology, and it just destroys, and you're just sitting there and saying, wow, all the value that I was creating is gone, and I'm not valuable anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that revelation kind of was a validation to what I had suspected. So it was good for me to be suspicious about it. Two, the more funny and the most important thing is I learned a lot about myself. So, okay, so I'm conversationally good, but somehow I need to develop more social skills.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk to people who are better at social skills, talk to a lot of women. They're amazing in social skills. They're super. And we, as males, we are kind of, we're not that well developed. So that helps. Yeah, really, it is true. I mean, it's amazing, so that I do a lot of that, and I learn a lot from people every day. And it doesn't matter which discipline, how old or young. So I present myself vulnerably, and I'm able to learn from people, and that has helped me. That has served me well. I have gone through a lot of painful situations, but they have been short term, and somehow I've kind of bounced back. So I think people who work should be able to have some kind of a very simple basic plan as to diversify in terms of presentation skills, speaking skills, listening skills, the basic stuff,
Right.
and reading and writing skills.
The soft skills, right.
Yeah, the soft skills.
So you mentioned women, and I actually did want to touch on that, on this conference that you're speaking at. How's the kind of the gender split, at least in the audience, if we start there? How's the turnout?
Yeah, so I think I would say 70-30.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still a lot of males. Yeah. And I have a problem with that. Because there was another question, and I have it here somewhere, I think. Yeah. There was another important question about, it's interesting actually. So the question had nothing to do with women. The question was about AI bias.
Okay.
So Jim didn't ask it because we had like 10, 20 questions, and we just went through. The AI bias, I strongly believe that we need to have a 50-50 split with women developers in AI. I need it. Why is the same reason I just told you. Cognitively, I'll just say it. I don't care what my male sort of, alpha male friends think. We love gyms and we work out like mad, but our brains don't have the well-developed sort of, sort of how women are. Why we need that? It is not anymore a nice, sweet talk that we need women, diversity, and all that, crap. We really need women because we need that well-balanced sort of AI development that understands and takes the biases and that takes the weight distribution into whatever that we're doing, which is being developed by, the beautifully evolved being who we call a female, and we need that. So that keeps us developing software and code in check. Now, this is very deep. And it has deep sort of neuroscience and cognitive capabilities that world knows. I mean, women raise children. They literally, I was telling yesterday, women raise the world. You guys are responsible for raising the world, and you so
a lot of pressure, Terry. That's
yeah. But fortunately, you're like what 4.5 million or 3.5 billion of you.
Right.
So I mean, it sounds profound. And I say it, so be it. It is this way. If the male-dominated community was just developing AI and machine learning, I don't want to be in that world. it is going to be a very sad, lonely, robotic, probably even senseless world. I'm hoping that more women come with intuitions, with better sort of social skills, who not only help sort of develop and create a engaging environment in a workplace. Today, if you have 10% of women, they know they don't have leverage. It's almost like, you have a lever, and this side is male and this side is female. So, this thing is like super tilted, and in some companies you'll have one strong female. I don't know which company that is today in this world, who can just tilt the scale, or even. So if you have this balance, then we have a very well balanced team that understands why it is doing what it is doing in whichever algorithm it's developing.
Right.
So this is kind of a long answer to your question, but it was about AI bias and should we be worried about it? I would be super worried if I kind of explore a company and I see 95% is male. I'm being very honest. I've spoken to few Silicon Valley companies, bunch of males walking around, maybe one or two female lady colleagues, but I sincerely worry if their intentions with what they develop are good for the society.
Right, and I'm truly glad you feel that way. I mean, I have two little girls, so I do want them to feel comfortable in case they do want to go into data analytics or technology, to feel welcome. And I've actually recently spoke to DJ Patil about, I've asked him to be part of my next book, and it basically is biographies of data leaders. And he said he will consider only if I have a 50-50 gender split, which I thought was very powerful.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think people need to take this discussion into, and I went a little bit more deeper into explaining why we need it. I've seen many conferences, and I don't go to conferences, but I also go to conferences that's totally male dominated, because you shouldn't make the sort of statements like, I am not going to there or I'm going here.
Right.
You need to be able to make a point, because I met some amazing women here already. They are like powerful women. They carry intuitions, and they help bring change. So a woman, as you know, can talk to 10 men and explain them things, and the guys think, oh, it makes sense. So they are big change agents. So I think it's great with Mr. Patil. He's, I think, but still, it's important to sort of, kind of create some kind of a disruption in the communities where we talk to those male counterparts as well, and explain to them why it's important, because they are married to women. They also have daughters. So, and that's why this discussion is important, irrespective of the split. I'm saying is that the split is essential for a company to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
A poor or a bad split is going to lead that company towards a future which is not what I want to be part of. That's something which I definitely subscribe to.
Right. Agreed.
Cool.
So another point I wanted to talk about. So you mentioned that there was some discussion around companies that are using AI or data to kind of drive the business value and get to, ROI. Were there any companies in specific that you talked about, or any interesting examples that you can share?
Yeah. So I guess AI, we need to kind of break it down to something more meaningful. So, yeah, I've been having a whole lot of conversations in the conference already. But for example, telecom industries, let's look at the vertical perspective. So, for example, telcos are launching the 5G network, right? And soon enough, we're going to see 5G network. Today, you have 3G or 4G. So 5G network is bringing sort of a lot of capabilities into understanding not just the core sort of computing environment, but also the computing that happens around the edges, for example, what people call edge computing. It's more a telco term. I wrote an article, like, I think 4 years ago, on fog computing, FOG. What it essentially means is that you're able to use, and various sort of various concepts like IoT, sensor technology, etc. Now, marrying all that data together with your base station data, for example, that you have in your telco boxes that are all over the place, where you have you take cell phone, you're conversing, and marrying the information of base station data to other data buckets, if you will, on sensor devices, etc. So telcos are doing a pretty interesting projects currently, which were still, you had companies like um, FedEx and all the other doing their own work, the last mile kind of things with the IoT devices and all that stuff. So you get the product, the best product where you're able to kind of distribute your workload and have some kind of a hyper local delivery model. Now, combining all the data is going to be very super essential for telecom companies. So there's a whole lot of research going on in trying to combine all that information and marry that information with each other, create kind of a storyline. Actually, it's all about, so you've heard about this thing which people call customer lifetime value, and
Yeah.
you're 30, you're 40, you're 50, you're 60, you have this thing, right now you have little kids, so you need this and all that stuff. Marketing guys have been doing this for like ages.
Of course.
Now, what we need, or at least what companies need, whether you're a bank, whether you're a telco, whether you are a healthcare company, is understanding that the 360 degrees kind of like a panorama view of who you are as an individual. So there've been a lot of theories and a lot of PowerPoints people have been throwing at each other. Now, fortunately, all this data that you have today, companies are collecting that information. I'm not sure if any company really has fully 360 degrees data right now, because they need to share that data. So data sharing is a huge problem with each other. Verticals don't share information with each other. Banks have some information of transaction. Retail industry has more information of consumption, at least of purchase. I don't know the consumption. There might be some other firm that may have more information about the consumption and health sort of lifestyle metrics. But all that stuff is coming together and making a great amount of permutations and combinations with machine learning and hopefully also deep learning. The whole process of your customer lifetime value, when sort of, mirrored with, let's say, your 360 degrees view of who Kate is or who Tarry is where companies are coming closer to using more and more machine learning. So my experience in the past is, so I explained what is happening. And my experience in the past is I have worked with banks, defined these things in various individual pockets. For example, a marketing would want to know, what do I need to do with this customer to prevent churn, or improve the CAC, the customer acquisition cost, or to reduce the customer acquisition cost.
Right.
Yeah. But they have been done in silos and pockets, so that has provided companies with limited and sometimes diminishing return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, combine all these things together and try to kind of these business functions, when they come together, and procurement talks to sales, talks to marketing, who talks to operation, and who eventually talks to R&D.
Mm-hmm.
This value chain within this company is cross silo. Now, that is not what I have seen yet.
Right.
There's no company on the planet that has done that.
Exactly.
Unless there is a company. Yeah.
When you mentioned that there are companies that are not sharing data with each other, I did want to say that I used to do some consulting in banks, and most of the time they're not sharing data within the bank itself, right?
Yeah.
Different departments just wouldn't share data across other departments, where you don't get that full picture. So
absolutely.
I haven't seen either.
Yeah, and another example, there are some banks, due to acquisitions and mergers, the banks in the US, also in Europe, all over, you have you have like 20, 30 different types of CRM data. So you have like 30 different types of CRM platforms that have different kind of sort of, tabular data, and you need to, and sometimes you have one customer that has like 20 profiles in different sort of CRM databases.
Right.
So that kind of a sort of sad problem has not been solved yet. Some are kind of trying to create kind of a platinum database that sort of absorbs all that information from the CRM. So that process has started. It started like 2-3 years ago or 4 years ago with banks. And I think so there is still this process of trying to make sure that we have data organized in buckets and we can do stuff with it.
Right.
So, okay, coming back going back to that prediction, or at least what I foresee, what is coming is hopefully from telco perspective, and I'm not sure if banks would be benefiting anything from this, but it's a welcome news that it provides many companies with different verticals come together and start creating, let's say, a master database or a master 360 degrees view around customers having and taking care of privacy and the security of the people as well.
Right.
So there's information that I need. For example, my protection, if I have some physical problem or anything else, I would like people to know that I'm somewhere. And what are the things that I don't want people to know? So that problem has not been solved. That's a very different discussion. It's a huge discussion. Yeah. So privacy and security tend to be, they can take you to a different discussion, but maybe we
They're
should
hurdles,
not.
definitely.
Yeah.
Information sharing, especially healthcare. That's.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But within the domain, they should be able to do a lot better things. Unfortunately, image classification, and hopefully also work within RNNs. They're beginning to realize that, the clinical surgeons, et cetera, they're saying, yeah, wow, it's interesting. I want to use it.
Yeah, of course. I spoke to somebody who, was classifying, I think, cancer using machine learning or data for identifying cancerous cells, and that the computer is able to do it 1,000 times more accurate or something like that. But they can't really take this technology far because of the privacy rules that are hurdles. So.
Yeah. And I always tell, work with a lot of healthcare, helping with a bunch of projects. And I say that, listen, we are taking and bringing our technology and enthusiasm on the table. We are not saying we understand this, under what is melanoma, what is benign. We're not saying that we are experts. I'm not a trained surgeon. I don't want to pretend to be one. I'm just bringing technology. I want your intuitions, which will always live. And please, let's combine these two, and let's help you do your job better. For example, if you can examine 100 patients, you would be able to serve 100 people simultaneously, and not one-on-one, where you spend a lot of time. I mean, you have a certain amount of time in your life, and you will be a surgeon for the next 20 years, then you retire. But imagine if you can do that 20-year work in 1 year. You would serve a huge group of people. So from that perspective, they realize that, our goal is not just, bring technology and be regardless or disrespectful of their profession or their careers. Our goal is to just, solve, these stupid problems like cancer. That kind of a stupid disease does not deserve to exist anymore. In this modern humanity that we call ourselves, it's still sad and pathetic that a disease just comes in and kind of robs you away. Within 3 months, you're gone. Like, come on. So then it's encouraging that people sort of accept me as a peer and from the medical industry, and not anymore as some crazy guy who's coming with ideas and technology.
Right.
That's a fear we need to kind of change and transform.
Yeah, I think job security plays a part into it, but like you said, this is people we're dealing with. People's lives are at stake. That if we can help people, I think it makes the conversation. You're able to facilitate it more.
Absolutely. Yeah, and same is for transportation and any other industry. I would be very much against in any technology that replaces or removes the human element. Right. I would want to see the new jobs emerging. For instance, and I did write an article which is sort of was quite became trending and outside and on the internet. It was about I created a kind of an infographic some time ago on you have these jobs that are kind of going away. Mm-hmm. And then I had this sort of a plane, kind of a hyperplane I created for the jobs where you need to be. And I created another hyperplane in which I said, those are the future jobs in the 30s and 40s and 50s. They were like robotic limb engineer, space engineer, virtual cop. And so those kind of things. So it was based on a bunch of researchers. I spoke to a bunch of guys who'd done a beautiful research in UK.
Guys and girls, right? Not just
Absolutely.
Oh. I'll make sure to put a link in the video so people can go ahead and find your article. It sounds interesting. I'm going to take it.
It's an interesting one. It's been used quite often. I see once in a while people show me presentations and I say, hey, but that's the original link. I'm doing an unconference session in which I'm talking about how to create your career, how to sort of develop your career, because I realize here hundreds of people are walking around. They're open source guys.
Yeah.
They don't have much understanding of machine learning or deep learning.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like 4 or 5 people. So Hen Goldberg, she heads Google, Google Containers. She was there, and there was another person. But besides that, there's like limited people. But they're curious. So I said I'm going to do an unconference,
Okay.
and it's going to be a big hall, and I'll share that with you as well. And maybe there's going to be a live recording. So I'm doing this really sort of. I'm going to be doing a whiteboarding session. I'll
Okay.
start from scratch, and eventually I'll create the whole roadmap, writing and sketching it out together with people. So not anymore just giving static kind of presentation. I'll just sketch the whole damn thing out, and then in the end, I'm going to tell them that how do you come to an advanced AI kind of a learning track, and how do
Oh,
you become
that's very
an expert?
cool.
Yeah, it just so that the thought came to me that I keep training people throughout the world all the time, and I share with them in privacy. But I'm gonna share that stuff because it's something which we share more sort of broadly. So that is tomorrow. Not I said today. It's
So
tomorrow.
that's tomorrow. It's the last
I'll
day of the
do
session, right?
the last day of the
Tomorrow.
session. Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Excellent. I'll
All
talk to
right.
you soon. I look forward to talking to you. You're a great personality, and I hope we're gonna converse a lot more.
You too. Have fun with the rest of the session.
Okay. Take
Bye.
care. Ciao, ciao. Bye.